It was the evening of November 12, 1996, a date that would soon be etched into the annals of aviation history for all the wrong reasons. The skies over Charkhi Dadri, a small town in the Indian state of Haryana, were clear and calm, seemingly perfect for air traffic around the busy Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi. But beneath this tranquil sky, two massive aircraft, one operated by Saudi Arabian Airlines and the other by Kazakhstan Airlines, were on a collision course that would result in one of the deadliest mid-air disasters the world has ever seen. This tragic incident claimed the lives of all 349 people aboard the two planes, leaving no survivors and triggering a seismic shift in global aviation safety standards. The story begins with Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763A, Boeing 747 route from Delhi to Dhahran. On board were 312 souls, passengers returning home or continuing their journeys across the Middle East. At the same time, Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907, an Ilyushin Il-76, was descending into Delhi from Shymkant with 37 people on board. The Kazakh aircraft was nearing the end of its journey, descending through Indian airspace, while the Saudi plane had just taken off and was climbing toward its assigned altitude. In a sky meant to be safely segmented and closely monitored, a fatal breakdown in communication, navigation, and procedural compliance was about to unfold. To understand what went wrong, we must first look at how air traffic is managed. Airspace, especially around busy airports like Delhi, is divided into controlled layers. Aircraft departing and arriving are assigned specific altitudes and flight paths to ensure separation. In this case, the Saudi 747 was cleared to climb to 14,000 feet, while the Kazakh Il-76 was instructed to descend to 15,000 feet. 1,000 feet of vertical separation. Standard protocols should have prevented any contact. But something went catastrophically wrong. Due to a combination of language barriers, cockpit miscommunication, and misinterpretation of instructions from air traffic control ATC, the Kazakh crew mistakenly descended below their assigned altitude. What made the situation more critical was the limited English proficiency of the Kazakh crew. Air traffic control communicated in English, but the Kazakh pilots, unfamiliar and uncomfortable with the language, relied heavily on a radio operator who acted as a translator. This created a dangerous delay and distortion in the relayed messages. Compounding the problem, the Cockpit Resource Management (CRM), the coordination between pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer, was weak. There were missed opportunities to verify altitude, question ambiguous instructions, or even cross-check instruments, all of which could have averted disaster. As the Saudi aircraft climbed steadily and the Kazakh aircraft descended through its flight level, the two planes drew closer in the invisible corridors of the sky. At approximately 6:40 p.m. local time, the unthinkable happened. At an altitude of around 14,000 feet, the left wing of the descending Il-76 struck the left wing of the climbing 747. The Kazakh aircraft's wing severed a substantial portion of the 747's tail, rendering it uncontrollable. Simultaneously, the impact destabilized the Il-76, which began a catastrophic descent. Within seconds, both aircraft began spiraling toward the ground, breaking apart mid-air and scattering wreckage across fields near Charkhi. The aftermath was horrific. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, but there were no survivors to be rescued. Bodies and debris were strewn over a large area, and the quiet farming village was transformed into a site of unimaginable carnage. The scale of the disaster was unprecedented in Indian aviation history, and would remain the deadliest mid-air collision the world had ever seen. Investigators from multiple agencies, including the Directorate General of Civil Aviation (DGCA) of India, international aviation experts, and representatives from both Kazakhstan and Saudi Arabia, were deployed to piece together what went wrong. What they found painted a damning picture of systemic flaws. The root cause was the Kazakh aircraft's descent below the cleared level, but the factors contributing to that error were complex and multifaceted. Investigators noted that the radio operator aboard the Kazakh plane was not a certified flight crew member and should not have been interpreting ATC instructions. The instructions themselves, while clear to fluent English speakers, were lost in translation. Furthermore, radar coverage at the time was limited. India's primary radar systems did not offer altitude verification, and secondary radar systems capable of tracking altitude were not yet operational in that sector of airspace. Additionally, neither aircraft was equipped with a traffic collision avoidance system, TCAS, which might have alerted the pilots to the impending collision and provided evasive maneuvers. The psychological toll on air traffic controllers was also immense. The controller on duty that evening, operating out of Delhi's radar room, gave the correct instructions but could only watch in helpless horror as the radar blips representing the two aircraft merged and then disappeared. The tragedy underscored a fundamental truth in aviation. While human beings operate the most advanced machines in history, even a small error, be it in language, interpretation, or timing, can result in catastrophic failure. In the months that followed, the world aviation community took decisive action. India became the first country in the world to mandate TCAS systems on all commercial aircraft operating in its airspace. This rule would later be adopted globally, saving lives in numerous close-call incidents in the years to come. Airspace procedures were revised to add greater vertical and horizontal separation, and semicircular routing structures were introduced for incoming and outgoing flights to prevent intersecting paths. Furthermore, language proficiency standards were tightened across international aviation, with the International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) mandating a minimum level of English fluency for all international flight crews and ATC personnel. The Charkhi Dadri mid-air collision also became a case study in flight training schools around the world. Pilots began receiving enhanced CRM training with an emphasis on communication, hierarchy flattening in the cockpit, and cross-verification protocols. The incident demonstrated that in complex systems like aviation, safety is not the responsibility of a single actor, but the result of seamless coordination between flight crews, air traffic control, radar systems, and the very language spoken in the skies. More than 2 decades later, the lessons from Charkhi Dadri continue to resonate. Air travel is significantly safer today, in part because of the painful reforms that emerged from this disaster. TCAS has prevented numerous mid-air collisions. Better training and language standardization have improved cockpit decision-making, and new generation radars now provide real-time altitude and traffic alerts. But even as we marvel at these advances, the human cost of that November evening remains seared in memory. Memorials have been erected near the crash site, and families continue to mourn the lives lost. Fathers, mothers, children, professionals, and workers, each with a story tragically cut short. In aviation, every regulation has a backstory, often written in blood. The Charkhi Dadri collision stands as a tragic milestone, a disaster that exposed weaknesses and ushered in global reforms. It is a reminder that safety is a constant pursuit, one that demands vigilance, accountability, and, above all, learning from the past. And while the passengers and crew aboard flights 763 and 1907 are gone, their legacy lives on in every safe landing, every warning avoided, and every pilot's split-second decision made right thanks to the hard-earned lessons from that terrible day in the skies above Charkhi Dadri.